Yeah, I mean, it was really through a series of different meetings. Rafa and I known each other for a long time. Jess, one of our producers, found Rafa on the internet, and they started a conversation about writing a film at one point. And then
film that would be thematically have elements of being in heightened language or verse.
And then I met Jess and Keith at Obama's inauguration in '09, and they were like, "Oh, you guys should work on this together." And we're like, "Great!" We already worked on everything together, so that was a happy accident that happened. And Carlos, through music video work, he did a bunch of videos for my band Clipping, and then later worked with Rafael in New York on stuff with the Bars Workshop, which is a thing we started at the Public Theater, and so we had all worked together for a very long time. We knew that Carlos was very good at making verse feel honest and not as if a moment breaking into song. We also know Carlos is very good at making great things for no money. And so he was an obvious choice for this. Jess and Keith signed on with that, and that's sort of how we got here. But the foundation in terms of like what the story was about, we just knew Oakland and we knew verse.
Right, so because the music is really important in the movie, so that was from the very beginning. Then, did you know from the very beginning how you were gonna integrate that into the story, or that sort of came up later?
Yeah, I think the idea of sort of poetic verse sort of coming out of like general dialogue was always the plan. We didn't want to have like musical numbers or anything like that. I think one of the early iterations we were going to try to use ambient from the environment to create anything that would feel remotely rhythmic, and I think there's only really one moment or two moments in the film that do that, and they became like our most heightened moments. But you know, I think it runs a spectrum. We have there's a scene in a beauty salon that is blends into verse and then immediately comes out of it when he's sort of pulled out of it, and sort of running between all those. When it starts where we actually like literally do it and it's completely addressed in the beginning of the movie, and I think we just wanted to stack verse in as many different heightened ways that we could, because the Bay Area is inherently like a heightened language verse driven, slang driven place. It's a major characteristic of the region, and so we wanted to take that and, in true Bay Area fashion, sort of crank it up to 11.
You mentioned the humor. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I was really interested in how you sort of play with the humor and then the really serious stuff, and how that goes together in a way. How
we always say that humor is sort of inherently. I said this in the last interview. Like, humor is just grief in time, right? Like it is inherently sort of usually coming from a sad or dark or turbulent place. So we just wanted to make a film that existed in a world where things are funny, which is essentially like the premise of any buddy comedy, but just didn't pretend like the world didn't have its problems and just let the problems seep into the story. And so the film starts in just a normal buddy comedy, set in Oakland, and then just lets the world happen. And really the reason it takes a turn is because in our minds, I think it just would.
Right. Yeah. But I think those, in real life, nothing, even at the saddest point in your life, I bet you laughed a bunch. If you take any month where you were really sad, I bet you also laughed quite a bit during that month, I think, for a lot of people, So like, in trying to just show like an honest slice of life of two people, like get, the messaging and stuff in the film wasn't the point of the film. It was just to try and show honestly what these characters would go through, and in that there's so much. You don't want to, just because your film is dealing with heavy stuff, you don't want to ignore the humor. In fact, like, that's how we all get through the day, is by telling jokes. So it's also how hopefully we all get through the movie.
Can you talk a bit about the setting, the present day, showing actual like current day issues?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's just what we were trying to do. We were making a story about Oakland now and about the ways that it's changing, and and I think, and I haven't been to Norway yet, so I don't know, but I imagine because it's happening everywhere, like, and it's the way cities work, right? Every big city is undergoing time. That's what happens. That's why cities grow. People, a place big enough to support more people than it has, and more people move in, and all of a sudden those resources are constrained, and the city has to shape itself around those resources. And the choices that a city makes collectively to fold in those new people affect a lot of things. And they affect a lot of people there. And that's, I think, anyone who is living in a city or a town undergoing change, I think can relate to some of these things, because it is, it's a very tricky thing, because as money comes into play, as like new influxes of business come into play, a city is going to fundamentally start making choices about what to do with the finite amount of land that it has. If you have little land for the people who are living on it, someone's not going to get to live there anymore. And if your city is in the business of gaining money, as most cities are, you're going to kick out people who don't necessarily have somewhere else to go, and possibly people who have been culture creators for your city are part of the reason that your city feels like an attractive place to be all of a sudden. And so, I think those are the things that come into play when we talk about like the contemporary nature of this film. Even though it does deal with race and it does deal with class and all of these things, it also is about what I think everywhere today is about, which is resources. It's about like a finite amount of resources and the choices you make based on that.
Right. For you, Carlos, this is also your feature film debut. So how was that like, going from music videos and smaller things to like a movie that's bigger in scope and a bigger budget, I presume, as well?
I think if you think about it collectively, yes, I've never had this amount of money to work with. But if you break it down into the number of days that we shot, it's just about a regular music video. So in many ways, we faced a lot of the same challenges that we do in smaller productions. We lost locations, we lost actors, we had to work with people's schedules, we had to bend backwards to the movie we wanted to make. But luckily, we had a very healthy ratio in the crew of first-timers like ourselves and people who are very experienced and very good at what they do. So I think, to me, it really shows in the movie there's like a freshness that comes with all of us experimenting and trying things for the first time, and just like not necessarily not being afraid, but just not knowing how to do it differently. We all did the best we could, and then also our DP, for example, who is like a tremendous talent and has been working for longer than I've been alive, and we learned so much from, or Keith and Jess, our producers, who produced tens and dozens of movies, and I think they were able to really balance out what the movie needed, which is a blend of those two worlds. So for me, it was very exciting. It happened so fast that I didn't really get too much of a chance to stress or freak out about the fact that we were making a movie.
You found time for that.
I did, but while we were shooting, and while, I feel like most people at least get a week or two before jumping in. The day after I met with Rafa, Keith, and Jess about potentially making this movie and reading the script for the first time, they were asking me what I was doing in the summer, because we were probably going to shoot it 2 months after. And then at the end of that weekend, I was flying to LA, Rafa was moving to LA, David was flying back to LA, and then the Thursday after that, we were in Oakland scouting locations for the main few plays needed. And then the week after that, we were starting to put casting notices, and the week after that, we were shooting. So it came very fast, and I think I'm glad it did, because I think it kept us on our toes, and it really it forced us to rely on each other to make this happen. We didn't have the luxury to not rely on each other.
Yeah.
Like we had to trust that we were all on the same page and after the same idea, and it seems like it worked out well.